Well, kia ora, Serge, and so lovely to be able to have some time with you to find out more about you. I'm really curious about who you are, what you do, where you work, where you live, and some little things that maybe our members of RPI would really like to know more about you as a person. So, Serge, who are you? Like, where do you come from? How did you come to be in Australia?
Well, thank you so much, Moana, and it's absolutely lovely speaking with you. So, first of all, Wamin Jeka, the traditional welcome in Wurundjeri from the lands of the Wurundjeri and Boon peoples. I'm currently in Naarm in Port Melbourne, and I come originally from Germany. So it's been a bit of a journey. I've emigrated to Australia in 2005, so it's 20 years now, and lived for a long time in Meanjin in Brisbane, and have recently moved to Naarm, to Melbourne, and yeah, feel actually really at home, I've got to say. I'm a restorative practitioner. I'm a mediator. I'm a consultant. I do a lot of different things. I'm a director of Peace and Conflict Studies Institute Australia. My day-to-day job varies, but 3 days a week now I work at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre as it's called the Appropriate Dispute Resolution Officer. So I deal in particular with very escalated neighbourhood disputes around personal safety intervention orders that are before the courts. The Neighbourhood Justice Centre is the Magistrates Court for the City of Yarra in Melbourne. And I'm part of what's called the peacemaking service. So our mandate is to assist people all around the city of Yarra with any kind of dispute that they might have, and to explore options how relationships can be restored, peaceful communities can be kept. So we work with a variety of stakeholders. So that's part of it. I've been in this field for a long time. I did my mediation training originally in 2002 at the University of Queensland,
Mm.
and I've been working there as an academic, teaching mediation and dispute resolution. And I also do a lot of work in the South Pacific, in particular in the autonomous region of Bougainville and Papua New Guinea, assisting with that wonderful journey that people are on towards independence and sovereignty. So these are all issues that are very important to me. I hope that is enough.
Well, it's such a wide scope of work that you've been doing and are doing. How did you come to be in this space in the first place? Like, no, where did you start? Where are your roots
Okay.
from? And then how did you come into the restorative practice space?
I think I have two stories there that I like to tell, and I'm not sure how much it is sort of now romantic nostalgia, but there's two things that I think have really shaped my life and my restorative journey. One is my upbringing. So I've been brought up in quite a privileged family, and very sort of German family in a lovely town. And one of my earliest memories is that my parents always had friends and people over, and people from quite different backgrounds. My parents ran a fairly large textile company, and there were lots of people from working class backgrounds there, themselves were from working class backgrounds originally, and sort of all through the ranks. And I'd often be there, and people were at our home, and I always remember sort of these wonderful discussions and dialogues over dinner with wine glasses clinking and great food on the table, and where everyone could talk and could have an opinion, even if the opinions didn't quite gel. But people were together. They had a relationship, and they had robust and wonderful and discussions. So that's something, that idea that, and I was, even when I was 5 years old, always included. I could always sit at the
Wow.
table. People would always ask me something. So this idea of voice and a certain kind of equality where everyone can speak and have a view, even if we don't agree, is something that's shaped me very early on.
Mm.
And then when I finished high school, and I looked for what to study, I wasn't entirely sure, and I was sort of umming and ahhing between psychology and law. I decided on law and studied law in Germany, became a lawyer, and was incredibly disillusioned by legal practice throughout my studies
Oh
because
no.
when people ask me why do you study law, I always said, oh look, I want to bring people together at a table and try and work out the problems that are there. And
Mm,
then I realized, well, it's not really what lawyers do. Often they exacerbate the problems, they entrench positions, they try to find rules-based solutions that aren't necessarily in the sort of the needs and interests of people, and they're certainly not particularly relationship focused.
mm,
So when I graduated, there wasn't a lot of mediation or conflict resolution in Germany. At least it wasn't very well known, particularly not in the legal industry. So
mm.
I looked for something and found a book that a German professor had written, and he had traveled to the US and he had worked and done his research in community justice centers and basically brought the theory and practice over to Germany. And I was absolutely fascinated. I also at the same time sort of discovered international conflict resolution and read some of Jacob Berkovich's work and said, this is what I want to do. This is
Mm,
me.
mm, mm.
And and then I looked for places and courses and found a master's degree in law at the University of Queensland. And I had traveled to Australia. I always felt a very deep connection with Australia. And I don't know, Germans have a fascination with Australia. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe because it's on the other side of the world. But yeah, so it was an opportunity to study here and to really delve into that field. And I haven't left since then. So yeah.
I can understand why you would see Australia like that. It's such a beautiful and vast country, and the diversity that exists there is, yeah, it's just incredible as well. So, um, well, so it also sounds like you've had a really colourful upbringing and expanded upbringing, and with lots of opportunity, like you said, which has led you on this pathway. What have been some of the highlights around working in this restorative practice space? What are some of the things that keep you here in this space, keep you involved, keep you inspired?
I think there's the everyday that's hearing people's stories in really difficult situations and
Mm,
seeing that it actually helps them when these stories are heard and witnessed and when they're being taken in and received. And that's something that really gives me a sense of purpose every day, I've got to say. I think every day is a privilege,
mm,
being able to work with people. I think I've had many highlights, and I constantly have sort of highlights. I was able to, through PAXIA, Peace and Conflict Studies Institute Australia, to facilitate an 8 months dialogue process amongst different communities in 2013. And it was around the history of blackbirding, of South Sea Islander peoples having been taken against their will as
wow.
indentured laborers to Queensland plantations.
Right.
And we were asked by Scenic Rim Shire Council, where the first plantation that people were brought to in 1863 is located, to help bring Australian South Sea Islander descendants, Mulunjali traditional owners, white settler community council descendants of the plantation owners,
Mm,
and also chiefs from an island in Vanuatu from Tongoa together
mm.
to create a respectful commemoration at the 150th anniversary of that.
Wow.
And just the stories that were shared with us, the immense burden of that history,
Mm,
but also the incredible grace that people had in that process to listen to each other
mm,
and to shape a new history, to tell a new story, to move forward. Like it all culminated in this important walk where Australian South Sea Islanders and the chiefs from Vanuatu walked on the road where they believe their ancestors walked in chains, but they
Mm.
walked together with the descendants of the
Wow.
plantation hand in hand, and they were welcomed for the first time by the
Wow.
traditional.
Wow. That level of restoration and reconciliation and addressing the pain and suffering and hurt, um, and working alongside them to um, I guess open up and acknowledge, first of all, just acknowledge what had happened and
Mm,
find a new pathway forward, where true acknowledgement can exist, and not and not pretending that the past didn't exist. That for me too is really powerful, in the work that I do, and also inspires me, in life-changing work. And when I think about the generations that have been affected by just that process itself and the restoration that's been allowed to occur, I'm wondering now, what freedom and peace can exist, as everyone starts to move forward. Um, Not saying that it's going to be an easy road forward, but that can actually start to exist, or as well, it can start to manifest itself. Wow, I wasn't. I had no idea that the depth of the work that you do. And you've just moved to Melbourne recently, and you talked about working at the Neighbourhood Justice Centre. Is was it the opportunity that took you there, or did it feel like that was the next place for you to flow your experience and the work that you're doing?
I've had a lot of changes in my life over the last 3 years, and this was, yeah, an opportunity that almost came out of nowhere. It came out of a conversation with David Moore at the Restorative Practices Conference in Canberra, actually. And I applied for the job, and I do have to say, not entirely knowing what it entailed. And I do feel I found my home.
Wow, that's
It's
just
also,
brilliant.
and it's that work, and
Mm,
also now the place where I live. Like I've always loved Australia. I felt very much at home in Brisbane,
mm.
but I don't know what it is right now. It feels like I've come to where I need to be.
That's always restoring for yourself, personally. Because obviously, we have these personal lives as well. We're out here doing the work,
Yeah.
um, that obviously inspires us and has meaningfulness and purpose, for ourselves intrinsically, but also how we then see that ripple out. Um, you've completed a PhD. And we were having a little conversation about that earlier, and I was fascinated to hear around your topic. Can you share um, with our community, what did you do? What did you do, and why did you do it?
So my PhD is on small group interpersonal dialogue and how it can create or influence larger social changes in complex adaptive systems. So there is also a complex adaptive systems component to it. And it was inspired. I think I'm very much a social progressive, and one of the things that I really struggle with living in Australia are some of the often very public narratives that I find quite racist and discriminating
Mm,
against our First Nations peoples, discriminating against people who have traveled and moved here often out of really terrible circumstances, and who
mm,
bring so much to our communities. It's
mm,
again, it's that voice. It's that there seems to be, it's about talking about them and at
mm,
them, but not
mm,
with them.
mm,
And so that's what I wanted to challenge. And I believe, or my own personal theory of change is that if we can create more networks and connections within communities where people have positive experiences with each other,
Mm,
setting relations right, as David Moore and Elicky Vernon would say,
mm.
um, then I think automatically the positive effects spread through the system and are able to change these larger narratives over time. So that's what my PhD is about. I had the incredible sort of fortune to be working with a wonderful group of some Aboriginal elders, migrant refugee community members, and white settler peoples, and they were willing to sort of journey with me over 8 months and a multitude of sort of dialogue meetings on the question, how can we create more inclusive and well-connected communities? And come up with ideas, and then we reflected in focus groups and interviews on that process to kind of process our individual learning. And yeah, it was a really rewarding experience doing that, and it shaped a lot of my work since then, I've got to say. So we used a lot of that in the work that I that I do in the autonomous region of Bougainville, where we've established a network of about 150 local peace builders, mediators, facilitators who do
Wow.
exactly what they go out into community and create connections and discuss information and bring people's voices in around their vision for a peaceful future.
I absolutely love that, and I'm really looking forward to receiving a copy of
Yeah.
your PhD so that I can read more about that. And as you know, my background is in education, and as you were sharing that with us, I'm thinking, yes, you know, um, what if we were doing more of that in our communities? Right from a very young age. And are we doing enough of it? I know that schools certainly address it and look to include it and be inclusive, but do we need more? And
Mm.
and if
Yeah.
we were able to contribute more, what difference would that actually make as well across our children, their connections with each other, their relationships with each other, their friendships with each other, their ability to have more empathy and awareness of each other, more allowance of each other. I can just see that that would create so many more possibilities for us to be able to work more peacefully together as a community, and just having all voices at the table
I can.
represented when we're making decisions that actually impact on everyone who
Mm.
needs to be at the table. I'm just going to
Yeah.
finish off with asking you just a couple of fun things. So, what you've been in Australia for a while. I'm in New Zealand. Where would you recommend that I might want to go? Where's your favourite place in Australia and why?
Very difficult to say. I think probably the most powerful place that I've ever been to is Uluru and
Mm,
the area around it. That just has such a resonance. And I've been there twice in my life and have cherished every single second.
mm.
Um, I would suggest you come here to Nam. And
I would
I
love
mean, you
to.
told me before that you've got family here,
Yes, I do have family
and
there. Actually, quite a lot of family there, and yes, and now I've got you there too that I can visit.
yeah, I'd love to host you and cook you dinner. And
Thank you. And what would
then
we
I
be eating? What would we be eating? What's your favorite meal? What would you prepare for me?
now, are you a vegetarian, Moana?
I'm not a vegetarian, but I'm also not a big meat eater either.
Okay. So I wouldn't cook meat for you then, even though I do love all kinds of protein, so I do
Mm.
eat quite a lot of meat. Um, we've got some absolutely beautiful Southern rock lobster, which
Oh,
is
yes,
is
yes.
absolutely
Yeah.
divine here.
Now you're talking my
So
love
seafood
language.
is one of my favorites, and this is also the connection that I have now. Being from Europe, I grew up with trips to Brittany and and Italy with Italian food, with French food. That's what my parents cooked.
Mm.
And 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 being here, I feel like I'm at the Italian Riviera. I feel like I'm there is so much Europe in the middle of Australia. It's the two things that I absolutely love. I went yesterday. I was in Fitzroy and saw a client there, and then on the way back, I found this lovely little French cafe where I could order a coffee in French, and it was absolutely divine, I've got to say. And you don't get that anywhere else, I think, in Australia.
Well, I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person, and I will definitely come and catch up with you when I am in Melbourne. And I love the French connection and the Italian connection. Beautiful food sings to my heart. It's been so lovely connecting with you today, Serge, and finding out more about you, and so that also our people in our RPI community can also know who are these directors that are on this RPI board, us as people, but also the wealth of knowledge and experience that we bring to the board and the spaces and places that we play in, similarly to our colleagues out there in the restorative practice field. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great
Privilege
day.
to be with RPI, I've got to say, and also because we are one of those well-connected communities where people openly and generously share and connect with each other. So
Mm.
yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you. I've got to know you a little bit better, and that's been terrific. Thank you, Moana.
Take care, Serge.
Bye bye.